sent this boat out and it had done the whole gauging across the river, and we were bringing it back again. And the river, it was the River Tweed at a place called Norham, which is right on the border of England and Scotland. And it was about it's about a 100 meter span river.
Oh, big.
And it was about 50 meters back again, and we just saw it disconnect from the cable and just drift off downstream.
Welcome to Coffee and Geography, where my guests and I geek out about the world and everything on it, discovering that we are all geographers in some way, shape or form. I am your host, Kit, and my pronouns are they, them or she, her. So settle down with a brew, hit that subscribe or follow button, and enjoy the listen.
This podcast is sponsored by the World Energy and Meteorology Council, or WEMC for short. WEMC is an international organisation focused on weather and climate data to support energy transition, and we also work with educators. WEMC have created Teal, an easy-to-use free visualisation tool that enables you to explore climate variables for the past 70 plus years. Get started at tealtool.earth. Find us at wemcouncil.org and follow us on Twitter at wemcouncil.
Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are listening to this, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Geography. A chance encounter has led to this discussion I'm really looking forward to. All came about because I was looking for someone who could talk to a bunch of Year 10 high school students here in the UK, which is 9th grade for you folks in the United States, about their work and how they go about fieldwork technique. And who better than this wonderful person from the Environment Agency, Louise Wilson. Hello, Louise.
Hello, thank you for having me on. It's great.
And this really was because what was it? Was it Tuesday just this week? So 2 days ago,
Yeah.
we just did this lesson with Year 10s. And
Yeah, it's been so fast. It's been great, but I love it.
And so Louise and I had a bit of a check-in afterwards just to see how we thought it went. And I was like, Louise, I do this podcast thing. Would you mind? And she was like, yes.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. Yeah.
So all of Louise's colleagues in the Environment Agency, I'm afraid you've got to be double jealous now of Louise, because I know quite a few of you wanted to jump on and help me out with this lesson. Thank you very much. There'll be future opportunities. But not only that, I've now roped Louise into the podcast. So Louise, they're 2 steps ahead of you. So.
I've just got to rub this in at the future meetings. Just be like, haha, guys.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and you should.
Yeah.
But for anybody in the Environment Agency is always welcome to come on the Coffee and Geography podcast. Louise, you have like the shortest but like one of the best like bios like that I've had, and this is it. It's 2 sentences, folks. It is perfect. So first of all, what Louise does, and then something really cool about her. Right, Louise is hydrometry and telemetry team leader for the Environment Agency. A true child at heart. If there's a puddle to jump in, then I'm on it, she says.
That is literally me in a nutshell. I when the forms like that come through and you're like, I don't know what else to write. What do I know about myself? But yeah, if there is a puddle, I will jump in it. And it's probably really ironic that I ended up working in hydrometry and telemetry, which is basically jumping in puddles.
So here's a British cultural reference which some people listening might not get, but I'll explain it if necessary. Have you had a Vicar of Dibley moment?
Kind of, not quite that depth, but I have had it up to my knees, which is always quite surprising when you're only a pair of wellies as well.
Yeah, and especially when it goes just over the level of your wellies, and it just like rushes in like that.
Like, oh.
So, folks, Vicar of Dibley was a very popular TV show in the 90s, I think, here in the UK. And there's just this one sketch, and it's probably on YouTube, you can find it. It's this one sketch where they're having a bit of fun and it's been raining and they're jumping in puddles, and jumps in this one puddle and she goes right in over her head. It's actually more...
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's a comedy show with Dawn French.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. French and Saunders, the comedy duo. We're showing our age now.
I know. I love that. That was back. I know. let's stop reminding ourselves how old we are.
So Louise, you're actually not too far away from me in the United Kingdom. I mean, just about an hour or two's drive away. You're kind of just north of west of Cambridge, in between Cambridge and Peterborough. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much sort of halfway between the two of them, which is quite good. But as you can probably tell by the accent, not really from this
Not from
area.
this part of the UK.
No, but yeah, just basically work brought me down, and that's I came down for a 6-month job assignment, and I'm here 7 years later. So something right went
There
happened.
is a little bit of an infiltration of Scots in this part of the world, because it's like one of my best friends who's from Dumfries and Galloway and the Borders and all that kind of stuff. He came and was a high school teacher over here. Hi, Clive. How you doing? And then we got quite a few academics at the University of East Anglia who are Scottish, like Professor Jenny Barclay. That's now the 4th time I think I've shouted out her name on this podcast, and I think Brian Reed as well. And now you got yourself. So what is it? I mean, you folks like take the mickey of us down south. What is it about this part of the country that seems to draw in lots of Scots?
Oh well, I think Norfolk is very similar. It seems very similar, apart from the lack of hills. That is, that's basically it. But I don't know, because I'm from the Scottish borders, so I'm like just next to Dumfries and Galloway, and I grew up in the countryside. And I think that's what appealed to me, is when I came down here, it was just as much countryside. It was different, but it was nice. It was open. It was airy. There's plenty of walks and places to explore, and it's got a rich history as well. So, for a nerd like me, it's great to a great place to explore.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, a lot of us have fantasies of traveling the world, of course, and going to see these far-flung, exotic places. And then one thing, of course, which many of us did do during, the COVID lockdowns, was just get out in our local area and discover things which we never would have noticed, which were there. And it's, I mean, I probably would not have enough time in my life to kind of like do every single walk in, say, East Anglia or maybe even Norfolk, because it's just so vast and diverse, really. And we're very, very lucky to have what we have around here. And it is a beautiful part of the world. It's a unique part of the world.
Oh, definitely.
Especially where you are, because you only have to go just a little bit to the north, and you've got the Fenlands and Little Holland, and
and we've got the area that my team cover as well. We cover such a vast difference of river. We go from almost the source of the River Great Ouse, and it goes all the way up to the mouth at King's Lynn. So we're going effectively from the west side of Milton Keynes all the way up to King's Lynn and Heacham. And that's our patch. So it's a massive area, and I've seen so much of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a big area. Fun fact for everybody: when I was a kid about the River Ouse, the Great Ouse, right? It's like we used to go on some trips, and mostly it was like camping holidays and like Butlins type camping, holidays, stuff like that. And I remember going on one of these trips, and my mum and dad, as we were driving along, we were going over this bridge, and my dad shouts out, oh look, this is the River Ouse. And like, I think I must have been like 5 or 6 at the time, and I was like so excited because I was imagining like the pink ooze from Ghostbusters. So I like jumped on, and I was looking at the picture out the window, and I was like so disappointed to just see a river there. And I was so mad and so upset. I was like, you said it was ooze. I said, no dear, it's the River Ouse, not ooze. And so yeah, I just think of this, because I was going to clap my hands and try and anger this river to see if it can bubble up and like grab the car or something, but
they said
nope. Oh, amazing. Right, so we talked about kind of like roughly where you are, but what about the drink that you have in front of you? So you have a brew in front of you. What do you have?
I do. I've gone for coffee because I'm a tea person, but being Scottish, I tend to get taken the mick out of for how I drink my tea black. So I thought I'm gonna go for black coffee instead.
Is there any particular brand you go grab for? Is it just whatever you can grab off the shelf?
It's usually what's on special offer in Tesco.
Fair dues.
Yeah, it's but today it is. I did bring it up because I saw on your little form. It's like, yeah, to bring it. So we've got L'Or Classique, so that is today's brew. So
L'Or Classique is today's brew, folks who are listening. Get searching on its sustainability credentials. That's why we give these a shout out. It's to test their metal with sustainability. Okay, while we're on brews,
Mm,
see what I'm going to do here, right? I just want to ask you something, right?
yeah.
What is it about iron brew? What is
Oh,
it about iron brew?
it's just it's so sugary. It's beautiful. It's just it's it was. I mean, it's changed now. They've taken all the sugar out of it. It's not quite the same, but
That
I
doesn't
don't
seem
know.
right.
It's just it is just pure sugar and it's great, and it was the best hangover cure ever. That was it, at university. That was basically, I would have a fridge stock filled with iron brew for the morning after. Yeah.
So, folks, I'm not even going to describe iron brew for any of you listening who don't know what it is. You just need to look it up. Just look it up,
Just
and you're
it's
like, what is, you know, was there a certain US president that used to drink this all the time? Would that explain his color? Kind of, seriously.
it's so
Yeah,
orange. It's so orange.
it's so orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I've always wanted to ask that question on the podcast. What is it with iron brew? So, but it is a Scottish institution. You know,
Oh,
it's
it
just
is.
as much a Scottish institution as the Scottish thistle, as
Mm.
as deep fried Mars bars, all that kind of stuff,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh yes, I know. I miss living so close to Edinburgh because Edinburgh Fringe was just amazing. But then yeah, just Edinburgh Fringe and just be full of sugar with iron brew and tablet and everything else. Yeah,
Give me all the stereotypes.
all the sugar. Yeah,
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 amazing. Yeah, so looking at so coming back to kind of the work that you do then, so
yeah.
you work in hydrology and telemetry, so for the Environment Agency. So first things first then, Louise, if you can, because the vast majority of people listening will know who the Environment Agency is, but we do have international listeners, which is amazing. Thank you, folks. I'm
Yeah.
Hart. So very, very briefly, who are the Environment Agency and what is your role exactly that you do in it?
So the Environment Agency is an arm's length government body. We are the agency that basically deal with everything environmental. We cover a wide range of the situations. We deal with flooding, coastal erosion, and basically flood risk management and coastal risk management. Uh, we've got We've got abstraction licenses for farmers that come through. So we deal with how much water people can take out of the river systems and how much water people can put into. We regulate like water companies about the sewage and chemicals, and then also we've got waste officers who deal with like illegal waste sites, legal waste sites, and how making sure they're following the rules and things, and with air pollution and all that sort of stuff. So we do such a wide range of stuff. Um, but my team specifically, we deal with river levels, rainfall data, groundwater levels. So we are the monitoring team basically. Our team install, upgrade, and maintain the equipment that is out on remote sites around the country. And we basically monitor everything at a real time level. So we've got bits of equipment out on site that are recording river level data every 15 minutes and bringing it back through our telemetry system. Hence, so with the hydrometry part is the measuring of the quantity of water, and the telemetry is how we bring it back into our systems. So we use a combination of phone lines and mobile signal, and we're moving to new internet sources using the cloud and things to bring our information back, so it can then be validated and then put onto a public forum like so River Levels Online, so members of the public can view that information, see what their local river is doing at any particular moment, but also so the flood teams can model that data and actually create flood maps and give better flood warnings and flood alerts that to people in the future.
And it's such an important job from all aspects. So when we were doing that year 10 lesson, we were showing all these fantastic different photos, all the different things that you do, the different kind of sampling techniques, the how you evaluate the equipment using little boats. You can talk about those in a minute.
Yeah.
What one of the things that fascinated me, and I think actually quite a few students actually got a bit of a kick out of, was that picture you showed of members of the team scraping algae off some of the weirs of the
Yeah.
river weirs, which is one of the ways that you measure the discharge and the levels and stuff. And because of course, if you don't scrape that algae off, you're going to get inaccurate readings, and of course that can affect everything, with regards to the level of the river, therefore maybe even your flood warnings and risk and all that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing stuff. But yeah, I think I've perked people's interest talking about these they're not toy boats, but these little boats,
They
they look
basically
like
are toys. They look like toys. They're our favorite toy in the team. Everybody loves getting out with them. We've got a little fleet of remote control boats. So when you say remote control boat, you sort of think of this little toy that you can play with in the bath. But actually, our biggest one is about 1.5 meters long, and about 1.5 meters wide. We've got a slightly smaller one than that as well. But they work. We have a special system that's actually created by a company called Xylem, and it works on acoustic Doppler. So this little sensor sticks out the bottom of the boat, and it sends out radio waves through the water system, and it picks up on particles and everything floating through the water. So as it's moving across the river, it's using these waves and recording how quickly it comes back on the echo. And this smart little bit of kit brings it back in real time to a laptop that we were standing with on the bank, and we can see a nice little graph. We can pick up, we get a nice cross section of the river. We can see the bed level, how fast the water is flowing at specific points. We get a nice little color graph, and then it gives us a full discharge of what that river, how much water is flowing down that river in liters per second.
Yeah, it's cool, and I actually geeked out on the little chart as well, because I recognized the flow pattern, where you've got the quickest flow is kind of away from the bed and the sides, but depending on which way the river is bending, it could be slightly shifted to the left or slightly shifted to the right. But then you've got the banks where, like in your blues, which means the river is slowest and things like that. And I was like, oh, I just love it. I can see all that theory and practice. No wonder why they come up with these diagrams in textbooks, because they're actually based on real data most of the time, So
I know. We absolutely geek out. It depending on when we've been out, and if you get a really nice cross section and it's like blue on one side and it goes from blue to purple to yellow to red, and then eventually then comes back again and it ends up in blue at the other side. If you get that right across the way, it's just perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting because I've having marked some GCSE exams this year, and one of the questions was, funnily enough, about fieldwork techniques in rivers, and one of the questions was design a data collection sheet to collect data to measure the cross section of a river in 3 different locations. So they had to do that. That was pretty cool. And so I would have now written like, why, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to use a toy boat.
Yeah, that would get you the points. Definitely. It's a long.
You stop the radar.
Yeah, I know. So when I was at university, we threw oranges into the river. That was how we did it.
Yes, folks.
Yes, that was how technical we got. But this technology is quickly moving on, and it's a lot better than just we can still use oranges and just count. So basically, from one point to the other, just count how long it takes, time it, and see what happens. But
that's it. Yeah. No. So you measure your distance. So I don't know, 5 meters, and then you drop your orange in, and then time it, and then kids will like poke it with a stick when it gets stuck on a rock.
Yeah.
I had one group when I did this with who each of them decided to draw faces on their oranges and give them names.
Excellent. So, that's how you do it.
I can't remember what the names were. Perhaps one of them was Orange Face. I don't know, but
I mean, it would have to be, wouldn't it? we did try to call one of our boats Boaty McBoatface, but trademarks and all that jazz.
Oh, because it's already taken, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the submarine on the David Attenborough, isn't it? On the
Yes.
Yeah, because they want because that's right, because it was a public poll. What are we going to call this brand new research ship? And everyone was like, let's call it Boaty McBoatface.
Yeah.
Second place was the David Attenborough. So
at least they called the submarine Boaty McBoatface.
Yeah, and they said, well, let's compromise. We can't really call the boat Boaty McBoatface, but what we'll do is that we'll call the ship the David Attenborough, and we'll call the submarine Boaty McBoatface.
Yeah.
You can't. Who says scientists don't have a sense of humour?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's great. And one thing I know which is going on, and this will definitely perk up the geography teachers' ears who are listening, and that is there's been a collaboration. I mean, I don't know how much you know about this, but you or your colleagues most certainly will. Is that there's been a collaboration, ongoing collaboration actually, between the Environment Agency and the Geographical Association to make this data that your team is collecting and changing it into teachable resources with regards to flood risk and flood management. And that's a collaboration which is really, really exciting, because what the idea is that it's meant to be localized, like have a local context. So it would be the local river or streams or whatever to the school where that's being taught at, and you get to assess your actual locale's flood risk, and that's pretty exciting. But it just goes to show how important the data collection side of things and all this analysis is, and what it means for just the general public.
Yeah, it's and having I was a flood warning duty officer as an incident response role with the Environment Agency for the last 3 years, and it's incredible being in that live environment where we are actually seeing flooding happening, and our flood alerts and our flood warning thresholds, our instruments are kicking in at the right time, so then we can then set and send out these warnings and alerts to people to make sure that they're safe.
Yeah.
So that's really fascinating as well.
Yeah, and another great way also seeing how systems are interlinked. So I used to do a field trip for the John Muir Award, another Scottish reference there,
Good old,
the
yeah.
John Muir Award up in the Yorkshire Dales. And one of the things that I got the students to do, and the Field Study Council folks got to do, was to go and have a look at their weather station at Malham Tarn. And I, most kids were interested in it. They said, yes, it's pretty cool. But then it's when they say things along like, this weather station is so important because it could save someone's lives or protect someone's property down in the village of Malham, and even beyond, the river Aire, and on into what that feeds into. I can't remember what river that feeds into, but it says, because if heavy snowfall is detected here on this weather station, or heavy rain, whatever it is, we know that water is going to enter that system. And because we know,
Yeah.
we've done all the research, we know roughly how long it would take, and so we can say, we've just had a blanket of very heavy snow here up at Malham Tarn,
Yeah.
and the weather's going to warm up in a couple of days, few days time, and a couple of days after that, just need to be a bit careful, because you could see a rise in your river levels, and all those properties near the rivers might be in danger of flooding. And
Yeah.
these two points could be tens of miles away from each other.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's amazing what the technology now, and how, like you say, how we can interlink it, and we do the same, very similar with our rainfall measuring as well. And the new equipment that we're using, it weighs the rainfall as it falls into the machine, and because of that, we can detect for evaporation and for snowfall and snow melt. So, it weighs the snow as it lands in it, and
Yeah.
then we can account for it melting later on. And we can use those rainfall measurements as indicators as well for flood alerts and flood warnings. We've got a couple of our sites where, at our sort of more reactive places, we use the rain gauges to activate any flood alerts, because sometimes the rain, if the rain's hitting a certain level, then we know that river's going to react in a certain way.
Exactly. And so you youngsters listening, if you remember doing your storm hydrographs in geography or science, or it just goes to show that actually, a lot of this stuff is based on this real life research that has taken place, and of course it's just been simplified and theorized down for you folks. And technology is not only just doing what you're saying, Louise, it's also it's making this kind of stuff more accessible. And I'll have to find the link, and if I can find the link, I'll put it in the description, folks. But there's this amazing video it's a time lapse video of a river. But what someone has done is that they have juxtaposed the real life telemetry, the real time telemetry with this
Excellent.
time lapse of this river. So you can see the discharge curve. So discharge, folks, is the rate that the river is flowing, volume per certain amount of time. And you see the discharge curve start to increase. but then if you've got the time lapse where you see the river starting to swell, and then the discharge peaks, and then it falls
Amazing.
down. And so basically, you've got a time lapse of a storm hydrograph in action with the river there. And
Yeah.
I was like, if I was still teaching, that is definitely something that's going in my lesson,
Yeah.
because it just goes to show. And so things like lag time, where it's just like, okay, I've got to learn what lag time is in case I get a question on it in the exam. Well, folks, think about why it might be in the exam, because that lag time could mean the difference between getting a warning out, which could be only a few hours, which is not much to do, or maybe a day or two. And of course, your lag time will be controlled by certain factors, like whether there's urbanization, whether there's been afforestation, and surely you want to increase your lag time because you know all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I
Mm,
love it. I love it. I used to love
yeah.
teaching the rivers unit.
Oh, it's such a fascinating subject, and it wasn't something that really took my interest when I was at university. But doing it in real time,
Yeah.
and like in the field and watching it, it's just fascinating. It's such a reactive job. We never know what's going to happen really from one week to the next, and no matter, even if we are in a period of prolonged dry weather rather than in flooding, it's still absolutely fascinating watching it go the other way and how little water
Yeah.
we have, and we still get involved with that as well. We're not as fun as the boats, but we have other equipment that uses acoustic Doppler for lower levels, so we
Mm.
actually get in and measure it, and yeah, so we are very much in between both flood risk and water resource. We help both sides of the coin on that.
Yeah.
And so no matter what time of year, our team is out there making sure that the equipment's all working for a variety of people.
Hi folks, a chance for you to recharge your brew, but also a polite prod to remind you that it's so easy to support this podcast. Simply liking, sharing, rating and reviewing means that it will get on more people's radar. Also, there are a few links down in the description which may be of mutual benefit. Please do check them out. You actually answered my question, my next question before. No, brilliant, perfect. Because I was going to say, yeah, like, sure, maybe someone listening was going to say, oh, maybe does it get boring when there's not? Because we are in a dry period at the moment. There hasn't been, there's been below average rainfall in this part of the country, particularly for a long time now, and there is a lot of concern for the summer, and whether we're going to have the recharge into next year, and it's just. And it's like, yeah, but okay, it's not just when the river's in flood, or the river's about to burst its banks. It's what's happening to the hydrology of everything when there isn't enough water entering the system, because that is just as important.
Yeah. Because that's it.
So
Because other teams that we've got are now looking at how, abstraction licenses for farmers, and for water users, and how much water can they, do they have to limit how much water they take out of the system because we're not getting the
yeah,
rainfall to replenish it. But then on top of that, boat users as well need to know what's the river level doing, because if it's too low, they can't take the boats out into
yeah,
certain
they can't
areas.
navigate.
So yeah, so it's such a variety of people that use the data. It's so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely precise. It's what's just come. So I know I've got a few listeners in California, because basically that's thanks to word of mouth of people like Eli Ramos and and Al Snow. But just think of that, folks, right? Because you've got massive water issues in that state of California, and of course other parts of the United States and whatnot. Do you hear what Lee's just said? Yeah, it's like abstraction licenses, having to reassess that because there might not be enough water in the system. Yeah, this is not California we're talking about. This is the United Kingdom, which is famously known for its rain, even though
Yeah.
obviously that's a stereotype. But it just goes to show how much that the systems are changing. It's not just the climate that's changing, but the human component of these systems is influencing these as well. And it's such an important work, and of course it's all interconnected as well.
Mm.
Quick story for you then. So, and this is really, really funny, really. So, one of the last field trips I did as a teacher was to take kids to Thetford Forest and the catchment area of the River Thet and all that around that area, and which is a chalk river, which is a special environment. These chalk rivers,
Yes.
we've got plenty around here, and we've got quite a large proportion of the chalk rivers in the world in this part of the world. But here's the thing: we were doing like turbidity and sedimentation kind of studies, and we were doing like kick sampling and mini beast and all that kind of stuff. It's all great. And one group had to lower a Secchi disc into the river, and a Secchi disc focuses to test visibility. So what you do, it's basically just a piece of, it's just a round circle. It could be of any material that's water resistant, and it's like, if it's it's split into 4 segments, and it's black and white, and basically it's just so you can see it very clearly. So what these students were doing, they lowered this Secchi disc into the water. Everything's going great so far. Everything's going good. All right, so good. And they would get to the point where it was going in the water, and they were just about to find out how deep it's going to go before it disappears, and it fell off the string.
No.
And we're like, oh no, what we do not want to do, we do not want to leave this thing in the middle of a chalk river, because it's a foreign object. It can cause a little bit of disruption. And there's this year 11 student called Harry, bless him. I'll get it. I said, Harry, I don't know how deep the river is at that point. That's why they were on the bridge putting it down. It says, okay, I'll be careful. I'll be careful. I say, all right. I said, as soon as the water gets to the top of your wellies, you turn around and you come back. All right. The river wasn't flowing I'd done all that risk assessment. Right. Okay. The river, it's a very, very still day, lovely, calm day. Nothing, no problems there. Harry said, he's got his lifesavers awards with swimming. He's like, okay, fine, right, okay. Yeah. Go on then, but Harry, you promised me you come back. And he got towards where it was, which is the middle river. And you can see the water getting right up to the top of his wellies. So he goes, oh, I see it. It's just there. I'll just go and get it. I think I can get it. I said, how's your weight? He said, no, I'm great. I'm fine. But then he bent down to pick it up, and he did what we talked about a bit earlier. Then the water just went into his wellies, and you just see his face like, oh! I was like, I said, are you all right? He's all right. He said, yeah, I'm right. But then he reached in, he picked out the rod with the Secchi disc on it. He was like, I've got the disc. Came back, and that was a moment. I was like, you're a lifesaver, Harry, but like, it says, do you have your spare change of? He says, no, I actually came to school with my wellies, so I don't have my. No. He says, good thing I weren't wearing my new pair of trainers, wasn't it? I was like.
Shows the importance of wearing the right PPE when you go out on site.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in fairness to Harry, he didn't come in these brand spanking new £100 trainers. He had his wellies and like absolute lifesaver. But it was that was really nice, and it's just those moments,
I've had so many of those moments where I was working in hydrometry, and you get the fear when you're working with, especially like the boats, and they're so expensive, and you're working with them in flood conditions, and it's so easy to see them just disappear. You haven't quite kept up with the speed of the river, and it just goes over that weir, and you're like, oh no, I've got to go and fish that out now. The worst one was, I probably shouldn't admit this on a podcast, but when I was working for
your environment agency colleagues aren't listening. It's okay.
That's good. Well, this was when I was working with the Scottish Environment Protection Agency. So when I was working with SEPA, right after I came out of university, and the boat wasn't a remote controlled one, but we had it tethered to a cableway. So some of the bigger rivers, especially up north, they've got a cableway that runs across the river. So you can, because the range of the remote control just won't work.
Right.
So we sent this boat out, and it had done the whole gauging across the river, and we were bringing it back again. And it was the River Tweed at a place called Norham, which is right on the border of England and Scotland. And it was it's about 100 metre span river. It was about 50 meters back again, and we just saw it disconnect from the cable and just drift off downstream. And I have never felt my stomach fall like so badly. I felt sick. I was like, then that's about 30 grand's worth of equipment just drifting off down the river. But luckily for us, so me and my colleague at the time, we went shooting down in our van down the river to the next bridge to see if we could see it, but sadly not. But luckily we got in contact with the local fishing teams and anglers, and there was an estates manager for one of the estates down there that actually found it,
All
just
right.
sitting in a little bush just in their party. So it hadn't quite made it to the bridge we got to. It just got itself caught in some bushes. So
I'll
a
bet
bottle of
luck.
whiskey later as a thank you to that person. That was so I felt a bit better after that.
Oh,
But
wonderful.
yeah.
Oh, what a great story. Yeah, I can imagine that. It's like, uh, yeah, oops, that's gone. This is a bit more expensive than an
Yeah.
orange. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a 30 grand orange go
No,
swimming
I
down the
know.
river. It's like,
Yeah.
you're going after that, kids. Or my homemade Setchi disc on a rod, you know. That was my fault, obviously.
Oh,
Oh, what a
right, of
great
course.
story.
Yeah.
I'm gonna want to move to something about you personally, and so
Mm.
to spill the beans is what we're going to do here.
Oh,
But
excellent.
before we kind of talk about this specifically, well, it says here that you love playing squash. But quick like that. I mean, you love playing squash as a way of keeping fit a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
I had a go at squash. It wasn't
Yeah.
too bad at it. But are you in a league, or do you just do it recreationally, or?
Oh no, I'm not good enough for a league. It all started because my flatmate at university was part of the squash club, and they were in the fear of being disbanded because they didn't have enough people for the committee.
Oh
So she said to
no.
me like, "Oh, just come along and just like even just join the committee. You don't even have to play." But I went along, had a game, and fell in love with it, and I've just been playing ever since. So just play. So we've actually got a few of us with the in my office at the Environment Agency in Brampton. We get together and we play once a week together, and then I try to play with my friends out with work as well, and just have a good old runabout for an hour or so and burn off some calories.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I used to pre-COVID times. We used to do at the UEA. Used to hire out a badminton court, have a little knock around. It's lovely.
yeah,
It's lovely, nice social
great.
thing as well. So
Yeah, it's been really great doing it through the Environment Agency, and it's let me meet other people that were in the office at Brampton that I never would have encountered on a day-to-day basis. But we made up really good friends, and it's good to catch up with them once a week and do something a bit different from just work.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So the next thing you've admitted here. So I'm gonna do a barking up the wrong tree, which is I'm gonna give two stories. One of them's fake, and you've got to try and guess which is the fake one, and it's linked to something else that you enjoy doing. So, folks, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read out two stories to Louise, and one of them is real, and Louise is going to try and guess which one, and that will lead into our discussion to close off with before we do our real geographers thing. So, story number one, Louise. Okay,
Okay.
so this is, and the headline is, "Young fossil fan unearths mammoth find on Winterton Beach." So a 9-year-old boy searching the shoreline near his home for Roman pottery was stunned to find a mammoth's tooth said to be at least 750,000 years old. This young lad spotted the molar amid the shingle at Winterton in the near darkness following a storm. He thought it belonged to a Roman horse and was thrilled with the ancient object, which added to his collection of beachcomber finds, including spent World War II shells. However, when he presented it to leaders at his local archaeology club, got even more excited as it was identified as a mammoth tooth. And this is going back on the fact that, a few years beforehand, a mammoth skeleton was found at Winterton Beach. In fact, the mammoth at Winterton Beach has become so popular that local businesses have named themselves after that, including Mammoth Hire, Tall Hire, Plant Hire, and DIY Hire from Winterton. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two. So this is see if I pronounce it right, the Archaea Raptor, I think it is. So some of the most important dinosaur fossil discoveries have come out of China. So we know that warm-blooded dinosaurs, usually predatory carnivores, made the slow evolutionary step into birds we see today, including ducks. I love what it says here. Yes, you have to accept that the duck is as a dinosaur, but despite all your better judgment. But with as much of the fossil records, there are blanks to fill in. An animal's bones don't simply become a fossil, and the climate has to be right for the sediments to settle in without erosion, leading to incomplete fossils or other blanks to fill in. A once arid region may turn wet, or migration may move animals from one climate to another, leaving holes in the path of evolution between the velociraptor-like dinosaurs and the mallard. So this thing goes on to talk about how this missing connection was found by a Chinese farmer, which has been dubbed as the Archaea Raptor. and it was hosted in National Geographic magazine. And there's a picture of someone holding the fossil being presented to the farmer who found it by someone from National Geographic. So, what do you think, Louise? One of them is fake, and one of them is true.
Oh, see, I feel like I've heard the story about the mammoth tooth. It's ringing a bell, so I'm going to go with the 9-year-old boy finding the mammoth tooth. It's true.
You're right. Yes.
Yes.
You're absolutely correct. It is right. Yep, that was,
Yeah.
and that actually news article was from the Eastern Daily Press, the EDP. The one about the Archaea Raptor was actually, it did fall National Geographic, so that is the true.
Okay.
I just omitted some bits of information. So it says here.
Good.
So
Yeah.
when I say some of the most important dinosaur discoveries have come out of China, the sentence I missed out was, but so have a few frauds. So
Yeah.
what has happened is that you get people on very, very low incomes, and they're trying to struggle to make a living. And one of the things that they try and jump on the wagon is they try and produce things which they try to claim are fossils of dinosaurs and things like that. And this was one of those occasions. And National Geographic actually ran with this, and they presented this person with an award and stuff like that. But
Oh, wow.
when the scientific community got hold of it and looked at it, it was like, no, this is
that's
not
right.
this has been fabricated. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, National Geographic, we love them as a very robust, authoritative, reliable source, but on that occasion, they got it wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fantastic. So, you like to do a little bit of fossil hunting sometimes?
I do. I can't say I found very many, but where I grew up in the Scottish borders, I was about an hour and a half from the beach. So when we used to go, we used to spend the whole day, and we would either go up to North Berwick, just outside of Edinburgh, or we would go down to Berwick upon Tweed. Down just
Nice.
literally just over the border into England, or we also had Eyemouth and St Abbs, Coldstream. That we had some really lovely places, all of which were some amazing just pebble parts of the beach, and you can pick up some amazing stuff like some amazing shells, stones.
Oh,
You
sounds
even get some
awesome.
sea glass in there, and just going rock pooling and beach combing. It's absolutely fascinating, and I love my days at the beach. I just wish I lived a bit closer sometimes.
You and my eldest would get on really well, because Theo brings back plastic bags of rocks.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then like, are you going to be able to carry that back to the car, Theo?
Yeah.
But does like a little bit of rock hunting and hunting and that kind of stuff. And another shout out to one of our wonderful, wonderful closest friends who is in California, in Santa Cruz, Kim, who loves hunting for sea glass and on the beaches of Santa Cruz and around the area. So a nice little shout out to Kim there. Yeah, fascinating. And who doesn't like a little bit of a shingle hunt and seeing?
Yeah, you get some absolutely fascinating formations, don't you? And it's such a good way to pass an afternoon out by the sea. That sea air and some nice, pretty rocks and sea glass to look at.
And I think someone spent years and years and years finding rocks with quartz intrusions, quartz veins at the shapes of the alphabet. So
I've seen that. Yes,
have you seen that?
I've seen that. Yeah, it's absolutely, it's amazing what people can find.
Years,
yeah, I can
but
imagine.
they managed to find a rock with a quartz vein shape where it makes the letters of the alphabet, and so they've got the whole alphabet now from A to Z, or A to Z for my American friends.
Yeah.
So amazing. All right, Louise, it's been an absolutely delightful chat. So we've got to finish off with one last thing then, and that is We're All Geographers, where we link all of our guests together. Now, last episode, I had the absolute joy of going into the natural food cooperative, an organic, ethical consumerism store here in South Norfolk, near where I live. And they had to come up with something they could link with their shop with the word baby, which was set the week before by Rebecca Nestor and Caroline Fernandez. So now we need to pass on this forward, right? And I actually went with, this word's just like, I'm like, Louise is going to be all over this. So it's a really, really easy word for you, really. It's not nuanced at all. It is like right up your street. and they said, well, I think let's do the word sustainability.
Excellent.
I know, but your
Yeah.
your challenge is going to be, though, Louise, is not that
Yeah.
you can't talk about sustainability, is you got to keep it to 30 seconds. So
Oh no.
so think of a way you want to frame sustainability in a way you think is quite punchy and quite cool for 30 seconds, and it can be linked to your work or just how you go through life or whatever it is. But whatever it is, you've only got 30 seconds. So
Oh, here we
so
go.
whenever you're ready, Louise, make a start, and I'll show you my timer so you know how long you got.
Okay. Sustainability is basically we are future proofing for our future generations. We want to have this world for as long as we possibly can, and we need to make sure that we are not overproducing and overusing, and let's uh, let's just keep everything as simple as possible. I'm running out of stuff to say. It's so
Is it?
difficult.
When you get a timer shoved in your face, it's like,
I know.
okay, like my work is all about sustainability and environment and stuff like that. It's like, oh no, there's a timer. I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say. I'm like, no, brain freeze.
Brain freeze, yeah.
Yeah,
This is why we all sit at the TV, in front of the TV, and go, oh,
yeah,
this game's show is really easy. I could do that. I can't answer these questions
yeah,
yet. They're like,
yeah.
It's like,
Wait, maybe not.
that's why I'll never do those things, because that'll be like geography as a subject, and they'll be like, oh, Kit's
Yeah,
gonna ace this. I'm just like,
I know.
no.
You wouldn't think that I've just got a certificate about carbon literacy and I know all about sustainability after that conversation. It was just like, oh no.
There you go, folks. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Right. So now you have got a special honor, really, because, and I'm afraid to say, folks, that next week, next episode will be our last for season 2, which is very, very sad. And we'll be taking a little bit of a hiatus before we definitely are planning to come back for season 3. If you're interested in being a guest on Coffee and Geography, please, please, please do get in touch. I am taking requests to be guests, or if you've got someone who you feel would be absolutely wonderful to come on the podcast, please do send them to the website jogramblings.com/coffee-geography-podcast, and then there's a sign up form there if you're interested. So what you're going to do for us, Louise, is that next week, and you are welcome to come as well if you're free, is we're having something called the Coffee and Geography Coffeehouse, where I'm inviting all the past guests to come back just to have an online chit chat in a virtual coffee house.
Oh, amazing.
And it will be recorded. We'll have 3 tables. There'll be 2 tables which are not recorded, 1 table which will be recorded. So that's the way people will consent to be recorded. And the question I'm going to ask them when they enter the room virtually is going to be based on your word. So this is a strange one, because usually it will be 1 or 2 people who just get to do the 30 seconds like you just did.
Yeah.
But actually, everyone is going to be asked something about this word. So no pressure. What
Gotta
word
think
would you
hard.
like me to give to folks?
Gotta think about this because it's gotta be crazy. But I think gotta stick with what I know and let's just go with hydrometry. See what people
Hydrometry.
say. Yeah.
Hydrometry. So that's going to be really interesting for the folks who don't know what that word is.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see what they come up with.
Yeah.
Love it. So what is the perceptions and what you know about hydrometry? Right, hydrometry it is. That's going to be the final word for season 2 of Coffee and Geography. And I'll get somebody in that coffee house to kick us off with season 3, to come up with the word for the first guest of season 3, which is very likely to be out next year. Right, now's the chance to say hi to people, Louise, and to plug your wares and to say how people can get hold of you. Perhaps they might want you to come and do another talk, a geography talk for kids, I don't know, but who would you like to say hi to, and where can we find you?
Oh, well, I'll just give a big old shout out to all my Environment Agency colleagues around the country, and especially to all the Hydrometry and Telemetry colleagues. We're doing a fantastic job, and let's keep it up. Yeah, if anybody wants to get in contact with me, you can email me, louise.wilson at environment-agency.gov.uk. or you can just go onto the Environment Agency website, and we have a customer contact centre there where you can just ask, can you get in contact with Louise Wilson. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions or have a chat with anybody, and I'm definitely happy to spread the word about the amazing work that my team does.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I'm really, really glad that this collaboration between us has come about. And it was,
Yeah,
and yeah, I just find it so funny that I can imagine, that backup bass. There's all these people say, "I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it," and they're like, "You got," so
I know I got
so
in there first, so
yeah,
happy.
you got there first. But folks, what I will say to that, if you're an educator, especially nowadays when we're hybrid working and we've got like, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Wonder Room, Zencastr, whatever it is, whatever you use, we can use this now. If I would have been using it so much if I could have just have someone like Louise just drop into a lesson for 15 minutes and talk to the kids. So folks like Louise are out there and they're so happy to do this kind of stuff because it's just a win-win for everybody. Everyone knows, like, for example, what the Environment Agency do. The kids get this extra experience that they probably might not have gone normally. It can help with their learning, and it's just such a win-win situation. So, Louise, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, not just for today, but for early on the week as well, and putting together that presentation for those Year 10s. And I'm really, really excited to continue working with you in the future.
Oh yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on, Kit. It's been amazing, and yeah, can't wait to chat some more at some point.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you had fun. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe so more stories and experiences can drop into your favourite podcast app. If you fancy being a guest or have any feedback, follow us on Twitter at CoffeeGeogPod and send us a DM. Or you could email coffeeandgeog@geogramblings.com. Until next time, keep geogging.